What drives a person to destroy something beautiful, something built by the hands of a community bound by hope? In the quiet town of Willow Creek, where neighbors knew each other by name and shared stories over picket fences, the community walkway was more than just a path. It was a symbol, a winding ribbon of cobblestones, each one etched with names, dreams, and memories of those who had come together to create it. But on a chilly October morning, that symbol was defaced, and the culprit was Karen Whitaker, a woman whose name would soon be whispered with disdain. Karen had always been a fixture in Willow Creek, though not for the reasons one might hope. She was the woman who complained about children laughing too loudly in the park, who sent scathing emails to the Homeowners Association about untrimmed hedges, and who once called the police over a neighbor's wind chimes. To her, the world was a canvas of imperfections, and she was its self-appointed critic. But no one expected her to go this far. It began with whispers of discontent. The community walkway, a project funded by years of bake sales, car washes, and heartfelt donations, had been unveiled with a festival just months before. Families gathered, children ran their fingers over the stones bearing their names, and elderly residents smiled at the legacy they'd leave behind. Karen, however, saw it differently. To her, the walkway was an eyesore, a gaudy display of misplaced pride. She'd muttered as much at the town meeting, her voice sharp and unyielding, but no one took her seriously. Not until the morning of October 12th. That dawn, residents woke to a sight that stole their breath. The walkway, their labor of love, was smeared with bright red paint, the kind used for barns, splattered like blood across the stones. Names were obscured, dreams defaced. The word shame was scrawled in jagged letters near the entrance. Shock turned to outrage, and outrage pointed to Karen. She'd been seen the night before, lurking near the walkway with a bucket in hand, her face twisted with purpose. By noon, the police were at her door. Karen didn't deny it. Standing on her porch, her graying hair pulled into a severe bun, she admitted to pouring the paint. "It was ugly," she said, her voice cold. "This town doesn't need a monument to its own ego." Her words stung, but they weren't the worst of it. The community was furious, not just for the act but for what it revealed about her, a woman who'd lived among them for decades, yet seemed to harbor nothing but contempt. The legal consequences came swiftly. The town sued Karen for vandalism, citing the cost of repairs and the emotional toll on the community. The fine was staggering, $160,000, a sum that would bankrupt her. Karen, unbowed, hired a lawyer and prepared to fight, claiming the walkway was built on public land without proper permits. Her defense was shaky, but her defiance was unshakable. She became a pariah, her name synonymous with betrayal. But there was more to the story, as there always is. Enter Lila Monroe, a quiet widow who lived at the edge of town. Lila was the kind of person who faded into the background. Her garden was her voice, her kindness her legacy. Few knew that she'd donated half her savings to the Walkway project, a tribute to her late husband, whose name was etched on one of those stones. Lila hadn't spoken out when the vandalism happened, but she watched, her heart breaking, as the town tore itself apart over Karen's actions. The trial was a spectacle. Reporters from nearby cities descended on Willow Creek, turning the small courthouse into a circus. Karen sat stone-faced as witnesses testified, children who'd cried at the sight of the ruined stones, volunteers who'd spent years planning the project. The prosecution painted her as a villain, a woman consumed by bitterness. But then came the twist no one saw coming. Lila took the stand. Her voice trembled, but her words carried weight. She didn't speak of the walkway or the paint. Instead, she told a story of Karen from 30 years ago, a Karen who'd been kind, who'd brought her soup when she was sick, who'd laughed with her at summer picnics. "She wasn't always like this," Lila said, her eyes glistening. "She lost her son, Daniel, in a car accident. The walkway, it was built over the road where he died. She couldn't bear to see it celebrated." The courtroom fell silent. For the first time, Karen's mask cracked. A single tear traced her cheek, unnoticed by most but seen by Lila. The revelation didn't erase the damage, but it shifted the narrative. Karen wasn't just a villain. She was a mother broken by grief, lashing out at a world that had moved on without her. The town, so quick to judge, hadn't known her, hadn't cared to know. The judge, a stern woman named Margaret Hale, listened carefully. She acknowledged Karen's pain but upheld the fine. "Grief does not justify destruction," she said. "The community deserves justice." Karen was ordered to pay, her savings drained, her house put up for sale. The walkway was restored, the paint scrubbed away, the stones polished anew. But the victory felt hollow. Months passed, and Willow Creek tried to heal. The walkway shone under the sun, but the town's spirit was bruised. Neighbors avoided Karen's old house, now empty, its windows dark. Some felt pity, others anger. Lila, however, did something no one expected. She began leaving Karen flowers, their delicate white petals a quiet iron on the walkway where Daniel's accident had happened. She didn't tell anyone why, but those who noticed understood. It was her way of honoring both the boy who'd died and the woman who'd lost him. Karen, meanwhile, disappeared. Some said she'd moved to a neighboring state, others that she was living out of her car. Rumors swirled, but no one knew the truth. The town moved on, as towns do, but the walkway carried a new weight, a reminder that pain, unspoken, could fester into something destructive. One evening, as Lila knelt to place another Karen flower on the stones, she found a note tucked beneath a cobblestone. It was in Karen's handwriting, shaky but clear. "I'm sorry. I couldn't face it." Lila clutched the note, tears falling. She didn't know if Karen would ever return, if she'd ever find peace. But in that moment, Lila felt the weight of her own choice to forgive, to remember the woman Karen had been before grief consumed her. The walkway stood as a testament to resilience, but also to the fragility of human hearts. Willow Creek would never be the same, not because of the paint or the fine, but because it had glimpsed the cost of unhealed wounds. Karen's act of vandalism wasn't just an attack on stone. It was a cry from a soul too broken to speak. And the town, in its rush to punish, had failed to listen. As the sun set over the walkway, casting long shadows across the etched names, Lila stood alone. She placed one last flower, its petals catching the fading light. The community had won its justice, but at what cost? The question lingered, unanswered, in the quiet air. Nd.